This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. David, Andy, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, Frank, thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thanks so much. We're looking forward to this.
Well, you know, there's a tremendous amount of things that are going on, no debate. I mean, we can talk about it both vertically and horizontally. The engines are running. Everybody's talking about how hot Atlanta is. But anyone that realizes what's happened over the last 10 years, you can kind of track back a little bit further and kind of look at the origins of how these things began. I think in a lot of cases when we see them, once they mature out, say, for example, in the case of the movie industry, you know, you come on it, you think, well, it's always been here. Well, of course, it's never been here, and now it's here as never before. Let's switch gears and obviously talk about the financial community and the financial industry and this whole thing about FinTech. Hey, you know, Dave, kind of catch us up a little bit. I mean, give us a little insight about what is FinTech to those that we're not fully clear on it, and a little bit about Atlanta's evolution and how it got to be truly one of the leaders.
Sure, yeah. You know, there are a lot of reasons why the FinTech industry is booming in Georgia, and some of the major fundamentals, which I'll outline and explain for you during the course of our talk, you know, are very strong in our state. And the success of this industry in Georgia is really the result of the vision and hard work of many of the leaders here locally that understood how to create, you know, a climate that would enable this industry to flourish and that had the grit to see it to fruition. And I'm talking about, you know, the educational institutions that we have here in Georgia, Georgia Tech specifically, and the kinds of other educational institutions that support the type of innovation and the workforce that's been necessary to attract this kind of talent. And technology has been a major accelerator for the development of Georgia's FinTech community. So, you know, this combined with Atlanta's venture ecosystem, which is supported by those educational institutions, the existing companies that continue to drive growth and innovation along with private equity, and the civic and industry partnerships. That's been the catalyst that's ignited this community and really provided the foundation for the kind of expansion that you're seeing now.
Well, I'm big on a sense of place, a sense of context. You know, when we talk about economic development, we talk about keeping employees and attracting new capable workforce talent for some of these expanding industries that we're getting into. Part of what I'm saying in terms of a sense of place and context is the chemistry that has obviously resulted in where we are today. Certainly, David, I mean, you've been a critical part in that evolution, and I've seen it go through it. But I guess the point I was making, too, earlier is that I think a lot of people don't realize how far back our history is in this whole area of financial services of one kind or another. And of course, talking about Columbus and talking about what we now know as Synovus. But for most of our listening audience, we really have, I wouldn't say it's a tradition, but we've got a long, long heritage of evolving evolution in this whole space. You know, maybe, if you will, cover a little bit, Andy, of some of the things that, you know, obviously we know about things like a PayPal, or we know about some of the things from a consumer standpoint that we deal with in what e-commerce is all about. How is this now maturing, again, as an industry, this FinTech industry? What are some of the things that are I wouldn't say game changers, but creating some of the speed of growth that we're currently involved with? I mean, obviously the evolution of the cloud and some of the transaction capabilities are doing that, but maybe go into a little bit of insight about some of the evolution of, quote-unquote, the innovation in the space.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. You mentioned evolution. I mean, we could go all the way back to Atlanta being called Terminus. I mean, it's always been a crossroads of commerce going back to railroad days, and that's continued to evolve. So if you look at FinTech, you know, people initially associate it with payment processing, kind of swiping the credit card, and yet we realize we do that on a daily basis with less frequency. And so it's appropriate, you know, talking about FinTech South coming up, that is taking place at, for example, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, there you have even how FinTech is evolving into the automotive industry. That is maybe not the top of mind, but that's the reality of where the industry continues to expand. You know, think of all the purchases. You wake up in the morning, you're on your way to work, maybe you're dropping the kids off, you're getting your coffee, what have you. I mean, all of this commerce can, with greater frequency, instead of swiping the card, take place just from a couple buttons in your car. So that's what's pretty exciting, play a role in this and really highlight and try to articulate the future of where FinTech's going to continue to evolve. And it's, I think when you articulate that message in the context of a daily practical, here's how you're going to use it Monday through Sunday, that gets pretty exciting, and it really becomes a fascinating conversation.
Well, and again, certainly there's a consumer advances, and certainly those impact businesses. But I think in a lot of cases, we're also talking about how you do future planning, because whether you're in that particular field or not, that particular aspect of the total prospect is hybriding and evolving, and you better follow where that's going, because whatever is next is going to fit into your overall business plan and strategy for whatever product that you're trying to sell. Let's talk a little bit about the event. Lots of information, lots of solid networking. If you will, I'll throw it out there for either one of you, but I guess maybe David, if you want, let's get into a little bit about what's it all about, and maybe even touch upon how maybe the both of you guys wanted to get involved in the challenge of literally taking where the industry was, where it is now, and start directing it of where it's going to go and how we're going to go about getting there. So maybe go into a little bit about that, if you will, Dave.
Sure. Yeah, and I think just to follow up on that last point, I mean, I think a lot of what we're talking about is disintermediation and the disruption in the current way that financial technology and payment processing and activity in the financial sector is being changed as a result of innovation. So if you take our event, for example, and some of the key areas of which we're focusing on, one of the main themes, one of the tracks is reinventing payments and financial services. And so you'd asked earlier, what characterizes FinTech? Payments and banking and personal finance, lending and credit, insurance, financial regulation, all these industries are being disrupted as a result of this technology. And I think one of the things that got me very excited about this event is that, in participating in previous years, I can tell you that the FinTech Symposium in 2017 was electric. There was so much enthusiasm, participation, and support that we sort of instinctively knew that the moment had come to expand this event and really challenge everyone that has worked so hard year after year in making the symposium as successful as it has been, to visualize what this event would mean for the FinTech community and the expansion of the story beyond Georgia. And as I said before, the development of this community did not happen overnight. It was the result of many individuals, groups of individuals, their quiet success and hard work. And the event gives our community an opportunity to showcase to the world what it means to be a Georgia-based company in financial technology and the resources that we've developed to enable these companies to thrive. And when I say resources, I mean, I'm talking about our startup and investor ecosystem, corporate innovation labs, and just the way that we've collectively approached how to make this market grow. And as for why I wanted to participate, in putting on this event, I can't really begin to explain to you the number of very talented professionals that have been working on this for many years and have dedicated an enormous amount of time and resources and are really leaders and experts in their field. So the chance to work with those individuals at the highest level in this industry and to help further the growth for the state and for hundreds of thousands of people employed in the sector, that was a very easy decision to get involved and try and help make this a successful event.
One of the early tools that a lot of economic development agencies still use today are what I would call a cluster map. TAG says where Georgia leads. I think one of the most powerful things you see is when you take all of the businesses in a particular vertical, all the industries and aspects of it, and you put it where you can see it in other pinpoint locations and say, this is our movie industry, or this is our IT or healthcare industry, health IT industry, this is our FinTech industry. And you look at that and you begin to go, my goodness, I mean, it isn't just a word, it truly is an incredible, very rich, very dynamic environment, a community that feeds off of itself, networks, and collaborates together as well as competes. Let's go into a little bit about the aspects of some of the actually, maybe some details in terms of what topics and who might be participating. Can we go into that, or are you going to kind of wait on that and kind of break it as we begin to build momentum towards the event?
There's two words you mentioned, Frank. One is collaborate, and that's a key dynamic to this event. And there's a second word that's really kind of the theme. If it were to be boiled down to one word, is disruption, and that's what's really exciting. To David's point of, being able to just simply facilitate the thought leaders in this industry to come together and continue to help message and lead really how this industry has continued to evolve, to disrupt, and to practically create jobs for the state, enable the educational institutions to continue to play a role. I mean, it's pretty exciting. So I know it's an honor for Dave and I just simply to be a part of this. We've learned a great deal, and it's been fun to see the collaboration of thought leaders not only in Atlanta but outside of Atlanta come together. And so as far as the agenda going forward, that's we certainly would be remiss if we didn't articulate FinTechSouth.com. That's a great, obviously, the website where we'd want everyone to go to receive additional information on the event itself as well as the agenda. But for the purposes of our discussion, certainly collaboration is key. And one word that really kind of boils down the theme is disruption. David, please fill in for any gaps I'm missing.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Andy. Frank, you made a couple of good points. The first one is, if you go to the tagonline.org website, there's a page that says Where Georgia Leads, and it allows you to take an interactive look what amounts to the 85-75 corridor and all of the companies that are represented in Georgia that are actively engaged in financial technology. And that's a very compelling map and visual of just how concentrated this work is in Georgia. You also asked about sort of who's being targeted, and I want to share with you what the 2017 demographics, how those broke down. We had 750 registrants from 329 different companies, 2% academic, 2% government, 2% banks, 18% of those attendees were startups, 6% were consumer non-fintech, so represented through the various companies in Atlanta, including Delta, Home Depot, AT&T, Comcast, Verizon. 38% of the attendees were technology service providers, and then 25% were female, 38% were ages 25 to 40, 34% 41 to 50, and 58% were TAG members. There were 120 C-level executives, 2 countries, 13 states, 48 speakers, and 36 exhibits. And we are targeting for a much greater attendee list this year. But that's a fairly good representative of who we expect to be in the room for this event. And if you just consider the groups that are represented, you can really get sort of a flavor of how this event really does draw from across the board of the Atlanta community. And it's what makes it special, and it's what's made the last 10 years in Georgia a good example of how we've been able to create this community and foster the development of these companies. Well,
I got to say it, David. I mean, just listening to the breakout of the demographics, I mean, what you're describing there, a lot of cases when you go to an event, there's such a very tight, it's almost silo vertical discussion about a particular product in a particular industry per se, or maybe even a particular industry kind of diving into it. But when you go across the spectrum of what you just said about the people that attended, that's kind of an insight to get an idea of what kind of an audience. But you know what it's reflected about? What you're describing is the entire mix of what it takes to make the ecosystem, because as you went through those percentages, you were hitting off on every one of the pieces that are really what we're going to call FinTech South, and that's not only the event, but all of the players and people in the community that put it all together, because it is becoming a force because of that collaboration and that unifying. One quick close, give me the date, the time, the place, one of you guys, and then once again repeat where they go to get more information.
David, take it away, my friend.
It's May 7th and 8th. At Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and you can go to FinTechSouth.com, and all of the information is there, including the available sponsorships, the existing sponsors, the agenda, and we are expecting a really spectacular event that should really not be missed.
Well, again, thank you very, very much, guys, for all the things you guys do with TAG, because there's no debate about it, emphasizing mentoring and collaboration and networking, and really the volunteer work that you guys do. thank you so much. But the other side of it is, from our perspective, hey, thanks, guys, for taking time to spend a few minutes today to discuss a little bit about this incredible thing called FinTech South, and for joining us today on Tech Talk.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. Really enjoyed it.